Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Monday, November 1st, 2021. And our top story today, what you need to know before jumping in to fantasy sports leagues. Joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is Adam Weinstein. He's the CEO and founder of Thrive Fantasy. Adam, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
You got it, Jeff. Appreciate the time.
I love sports. I love watching football. I love watching basketball, hockey. How big is the fantasy sports industry? There are so many there are probably people who are part of this industry who are part of fantasy sports that I don't even know are part of fantasy sports.
Yeah, it's definitely growing year over year. I'd say even in the last decade, it's become pretty big, whether it's on ESPN or along those lines. But yeah, a lot of experts believe it's a little north of $22 billion a year in revenue between whether it's daily fantasy, just season-long fantasy, or anything as like a third party. That's the type of numbers that are being thrown out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's growing, and I know there's some partnerships. We're going to talk a little bit more about the alliances with the sports leagues and the players. But who really makes up this demographic? When you look at who might be a fantasy player, how does it break down with gender? How does it break down demographically, geographically around the U.S. and across the globe?
Yeah, sure. So as a lot of people could probably assume and imagine, it is more male skewed. With that said, the female population is growing very quickly and rapidly within not only daily fantasy and fantasy, but sports betting in general. A lot of initiatives are around grabbing that demo just because it is a massive demand there. But in terms of the demo, it's mostly 18 to 35-year-old males, at least from the Thrive Fantasy perspective. But with that said, we have a lot of, whether it's older people on the site and playing daily. We are just seeing a ton of new opportunity and new demos coming to our site daily.
That's great. And I guess this is another way for people to be involved in the sports they care and love. There are lots of different sports leagues, and which of the sports leagues, is there any one more popular than the others? The NFL has a great brand, Major League Baseball has a great brand, NBA, WNBA, but is there one that really stands out as being remarkable among all the others?
Sure. Yeah. So right now is a sports fan's favorite time of year. We have all the four major sports happening right now, along with PGA, along with esports, soccer, and what have you. But as you alluded to, NFL is king in terms of revenue generation, in terms of engagement. They essentially have 1 out of the 7 days every week on Sunday where people are glued to their TVs for about 8-9 hours. And that we're not straying away. We're not naive to the fact that the NFL consumer is the most of want just because they're engaging throughout that Sunday and then even on Monday for Monday Night Football and Thursday. But right behind that, you're seeing NBA really scaling and growing very quickly. Major League Baseball and the MLB is not nearly as of demand on the fantasy side, just because it's not as engaging of a game. I'll give you an instance or an example, like your favorite baseball player, he's only getting up at bat maybe 3 or 4 times. So if they're not up, it's kind of like, I can change the channel. But between NFL with that really fun, fast pace, and then the NBA going back and forth, those are the two major sports that you're seeing the most growth on the fantasy side.
When it comes to getting started, I mean, we have a lot of people to watch the show that may not be familiar with fantasy. They probably heard about it. I don't think anyone can kind of walk through the supermarket or somewhere without hearing something about it. But what do I need to know when getting started?
Yeah, so what we love about Thrive and just in fantasy in general is we're trying to make it as simplistic as humanly possible for that fan who's not an expert or doesn't research and know every player on every team. So in just traditional fantasy sports, when you're playing alongside your buddies or family or colleagues, what have you, it's pretty easy in the sense of you research players, you draft a lineup, and then that's your team for the season. You can trade players or pick them up or release them, what have you. Thrive Fantasy specifically is daily fantasy sports in which every day you have a different lineup and you're playing against other users. So for that, we're only asking you about the top tier athletes, the all-stars in a given sport or esport. So that one's more of a pick up and play type mentality. You really only need to do research for 5-10 minutes in order to be successful on our platform.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do I need to be an expert? I mean, I love football. I never played it. I like basketball. I've never played it. I wrestled in high school, by the way. So I'm a little, height challenged. I'm only 5'8", 5'9" with heels. But do I need to be an expert in the sport in order to participate?
Yeah, I would say for a lot of our competitors, the answer is yes. The reason behind Thrive is that some of our predecessors, such a small percentage of their user base were winning so much of the money that it kind of was like a scam in any other industry. They'd be like, why is the same person winning all of my money every day? So our simplistic game concept really cracks that down. We're only asking you about, in a given day, 20 athletes. Again, those are the LeBron Jameses of the world, the Tom Brady's. So it takes maybe 20, 30 minutes to research all 20 players and then make your lineup. So the answer is no on our game concept, but yes in some of our competitors.
How engaged, you hear about Madden, which is I remember playing Madden on the Sega Genesis. I'm dating myself here, but I remember, and the players are really engaged over what their Madden score is. Are they engaged, and I'm talking about football, but there are other sports. How engaged are they, I should say, in fantasy sports? Do they track how they're doing, and do they participate?
1000%. You're seeing NFL athletes tweet all the time, hey, if you drafted me in your fantasy lineup, I'm going to absolutely crush it for you this week, whether it's going into like week 14, 15, 16 for the playoffs, or actually one of our investors, I won't name his name, but he just partnered with Yahoo Fantasy as an analyst. And if you draft him in your fantasy league and you end up winning your week, not necessarily due to him, but he's probably going to be a big reason, and you tweet at him, he gives one fan a signed jersey every week if you have him on your fantasy roster. So all of the NFL athletes are very understanding of their fantasy value, how they stack up. And if they have a bad day, they apologize on Twitter being like, I didn't mean to ruin your fantasy week. So without a doubt, this has become mainstream, and they're 1000% focused on not obviously making the best plays on the field, but ultimately how that directly correlates and results to their fantasy scores.
Yeah, it's really engaging. It actually is a community. Adam, I need to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more about how you can get started in fantasy sports and what you need to know. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. We're talking this morning to Adam Weinstein of Thrive Fantasy. Adam, thanks so much for staying with us this morning.
Got it.
So let's continue the conversation. And you told us how we can get that anybody can play this, play in fantasy. They can participate. And as I said, going into commercial break, this is a great community builder. It's great to get engaged. You can be engaged with your favorite players, follow your favorite players in your favorite sports. Let's get to some of the nuts and bolts here. How do I access Thrive Fantasy and other fantasy platforms?
Yeah, so there are a couple of major outlets, whether it's, let's just say, rotogrinders.com or other third parties who, if you're wanting to get involved, you go to their sites, they break down every one of the daily fantasy or sports betting companies. They give you a review on them from best to worst. But specifically for Thrive, we are live on the App Store, on the Play Store, and thrivefantasy.com. Just search for Thrive Fantasy, one word, and we'll populate pretty quickly. You won't have too much trouble finding us if you want to get involved.
And are there costs associated with being part of it? I know that having done this in the past, you get some friends together, you have a league, and we all contribute a certain amount of money. But I've also seen big stakes games, fantasy games, where I can win $1 million. By the way, I've never won even anything. I can even win like $10. But what are the costs associated with participating?
Yeah, that's the reason actually I founded Thrive. Our predecessors, DraftKings and FanDuel, given my sports knowledge, I was like, I'm going to crush it on these sites. I deposited like 5-10 grand and got my absolute butt kicked. So I'm right with you, Jeff, in the sense of it's quite tough to win consistently on those platforms. But yeah, we have free to play contests. If you just want to get your feet wet, get to know our game concept, it's completely free. You don't have to enter any money. But we do have contests ranging up to $5,000 if you want to play with the big guys and big gals. So yeah, everything ranging from free to play up to those big numbers, those high denominations. We have something for you.
Well, you got to play to win. That's what they say about the lottery. I'm not equating this to the lottery, but do you have to enter banking information? I mean, one of the things we talk about on this network quite often is privacy and data. That seems to be a big deal in the financial services industry. Do I have to enter in like a routing number, banking account, Venmo account, something like that in order to pass through money?
Yep. So we offer as deposit methods any credit card that you want, ACH, e-check, or a wire. So if you want to just stick to the credit card, you can do that. With that said, we are daily fantasy and there is money being transferred hand to hand. So we do need to verify you claiming who you are to be. So whether that's a social security number or address and verifying that way, that's just best practices. And that's what honestly you have to do in order to be approved to run a daily fantasy platform. So yeah, we adhere to all compliance and regulatory. All of your data is 1000% secure. We've had third parties test us on our security and compliance, and we've gotten approved and gotten certificates there. So rest assured, none of that information is being shared by any means.
Yeah, very important, obviously, and you want to follow all the compliance rules as a business. This isn't like some shady thing. This is a mainstream industry now, and it's highly regulated. Let's talk about some of the challenges. Are there things that people who are new to fantasy, other than winning or losing, that obviously would be a challenge, but are there things that we need to be aware of if we're new to fantasy sports new to the community, new to participation. What do we have to look out for to protect ourselves?
Yeah, so for the bigger players, the ones that are saying, hey, deposit $10 and your chance of winning $1 million, that is more of a pipe dream than actual reality. 95% of the people who enter those contests are net losers or net negative. So be very cognizant and wary of those get rich quick schemes, because it's just not the realization and actually coming to fruition for nearly 100% of their fan base. In terms of for us being weary or something that you need to learn, it's very important to go to where the other fans and users aren't going. I'll give you an example. For, let's just say this upcoming NFL week, if everybody is using Tom Brady or rostering him as your quarterback, you most likely don't want to do that, because if he is to have a bad day and not project to where he is projected to go to, you have a really big step up on the rest of the field. You're going to have an advantageous lineup. So it's called chalk. You kind of don't want to go where the chalk is, where the majority of fans are going, just so you have a step up on them. So that's just a really high level beginning type of strategy, is trying to be differentiated with your lineup as opposed to the majority.
Well, Adam, it sounds like a fun time, an engaging time, a great time learning about sports, being part of sports, and a great diversion away from all the challenges of life. Great to have you on, and we look forward to having you back again very soon. My
pleasure, Jeff. Really appreciate the time. And yeah, this is just the beginning. So anybody who wants to get involved, whether it's now, 6 months, 2 years down the road, we'd love to have you.
That wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, somebody you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. We're back again tomorrow. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.